When I was 7, the world felt like a faded photograph, all color drained away. My mother had died of a heart attack when I was 6 months old, and my father followed her in a car crash just months after my 7th birthday. Orphaned, I was sent to live with my aunt and uncle in Massachusetts, strangers I barely knew. I could recall only one birthday party they'd attended, their faces vague in my memory. On the day I arrived at their home, I didn't speak. My voice was locked inside me, buried beneath layers of grief. Their house was warm, though, filled with a kind of love that tried to pierce my numbness. Aunt Helen, with her bright smile, kept saying how thrilled she was to have another girl around. Uncle Eric, a speech and theater professor, radiated enthusiasm, and their son Harrison, a year younger than me, seemed to live for music. Their home thrummed with sound, piano chords, guitar riffs, Aunt Helen's voice lessons echoing through the halls. They were a family of performers, and I, with no musical talent, felt like I didn't belong. Despite my silence, Aunt Helen and Uncle Eric were kind, doing their best to make me feel at home. I found solace in art, sketching quietly in corners while their music filled the air. It soothed me, even if I couldn't join in. Harrison played every instrument imaginable, and I loved watching him lose himself in melodies, his fingers dancing over strings or keys. But my passion lay elsewhere, in creating, in building, in shaping spaces. When I went to Harrison's 6th grade musical, I barely noticed the songs. My eyes were drawn to the set pieces, painted backdrops, wooden props, the way they transformed a stage into another world. I was fascinated by how a few planks and some paint could create something so real. By high school, I'd found my place. Uncle Eric directed the college's theater productions, and I was allowed to help with set design. I learned to wire lights, hammer planks, and paint sprawling cityscapes. For West Side Story, I built Maria's apartment bedroom, pouring my heart into every detail. Working alongside other kids, I felt a spark of belonging. For the first time since my parents' deaths, I was content. I sang along with the cast during rehearsals, not because I was good, but because the music made me feel alive. One evening during my senior year, Uncle Eric came home in a rage, his face red and his voice sharp. He shouted about condemning the damn place, and Aunt Helen quickly ushered him into the study, shutting the door. Harrison and I exchanged confused glances in the living room, catching fragments of his rant, words like hill, street, and thrown away. Harrison's eyes widened, and he leaned closer, whispering that his dad was angry because High Hill Theater on Locust Street was being torn down. The theater had been abandoned since 2004, a crumbling relic I passed daily on my bike ride home from school. Its faded brick facade and boarded windows always gave me an uneasy feeling, like a weight pressing on my chest. Uncle Eric loved the place. He'd sigh wistfully whenever we drove by, reminiscing about the college's old performances there. To me, though, its decay was a relief. The theater's grim aura made my skin crawl, as if it radiated some dark, negative energy that pushed against me. Harrison lowered his voice, his eyes darting toward the study. He said the place was creepy, and he'd always wondered what happened there. He shared a story he'd heard from his dad about 2004, when the college was staging Sweeney Todd. The director, Alfred Beaumont, had cast a shy freshman girl as Johanna. She had no family, few friends, and kept to herself. Rumor had it Beaumont gave her the role because he was infatuated with her, a claim that made my stomach turn. The upperclassmen resented her, whispering that she didn't deserve the part. On opening night, after her solo, she ran off stage and vanished. Days later, Beaumont and 2 other cast members disappeared too. The theater was shuttered, and no one spoke of it again. The story hooked me, like a puzzle with missing pieces. Who was this girl? Why did she vanish? What happened to Beaumont? My curiosity burned, urging me to dig deeper. The next day, Uncle Eric asked if I wanted to go downtown with him. He had some business to handle, he said, and I could grab a coffee or visit the library. I jumped at the chance, hoping to research High Hill Theater. At the library, I scoured online archives, but the results were frustratingly vague. One article, from a rehearsal in 2004, included an interview with Beaumont and 2 students, their names redacted. Beaumont gushed about the girl playing Johanna, calling her Birdy and praising her voice. He said she brought Johanna to life, that she was like his little songbird. The nickname made me wince. His words dripped with a possessiveness that felt wrong. The article quoted Birdy briefly, "I know what it's like to feel trapped, like a bird in a cage." Her words hit me hard, echoing my own feelings of isolation after losing my parents. But the rest of her interview was blacked out, as were later articles about the disappearances. It was as if someone had deliberately erased her existence, leaving only shadows of the truth. When we got home, Uncle Eric revealed his business. He'd protested the theater's demolition and, after a heated argument, bought the building for a mere $800, a steal, considering its size. Harrison whispered to me that they just wanted it gone. Uncle Eric plopped onto the couch between us, grinning, and slung an arm over each of our shoulders. He asked if we wanted to help clean it up over the summer, promising to pay Harrison, knowing I'd help just for the chance to build something. I was thrilled. Restoring the theater was a chance to transform something broken into something beautiful. But when we arrived at High Hill Theater, that oppressive energy hit me again, stronger this time, giving me a faint headache. Uncle Eric unlocked the door, and the air inside was thick with dust, stale and heavy. The lobby was frozen in time. Tables with lamps, scattered playbills, a tilted marquee. The auditorium was intact but grimy, every surface coated in neglect. Despite its condition, the theater felt alive, as if it were watching us, its walls holding secrets. We began cleaning, and Uncle Eric promised his electrician friend, Vernon, would join us soon to fix the wiring. I volunteered to work backstage, drawn to the abandoned props. Tables, mugs, a city backdrop, and a barber's chair from Sweeney Todd. Staring at it, I imagined Todd's razor glinting, blood pooling on the floor, bodies disappearing into the dark. A chill ran through me, and I shook off the image, telling myself it was just my imagination. As I explored, I picked up a piece of plywood, thinking about its potential for new sets. A jarring crash of piano keys made me drop it, the sound echoing from the stage, loud and chaotic, as if someone had slammed their hands on the keys. My heart pounded as I crept toward the stage, hearing it again, pound after pound. In the dim light, I saw a figure at the piano, smashing the keys. I shouted at Harrison, thinking he was pranking me, but the pounding stopped. A flashlight beam hit my face, and Harrison jogged down the aisle, confused, asking why I was yelling. I glanced at the piano. No one was there. My jaw dropped, a shiver crawling up my spine. I asked if he'd heard the piano, my voice trembling. He laughed, calling it a cliché joke. I forced a laugh, claiming I was trying to scare him, but fear gnawed at me. Had someone been there, slipping away in the dark? Or was my mind playing tricks? For the next few days, we cleaned without incident. Harrison tackled the bathrooms, checking if the water could run, while I organized backstage, throwing out useless wood and dusting props. Alone, I wore headphones, humming to keep the eerie silence at bay. One day, after sweeping, I removed my headphones and froze. The humming continued, soft but unmistakable, echoing the song I'd been humming. I grabbed my flashlight, heart racing, and followed the sound to a door I hadn't noticed before. Painted in white were the words, "My Way In." The humming came from inside, sending goosebumps prickling across my skin. I reached for the knob, but the humming stopped abruptly, and the door was locked. Relief washed over me, but curiosity urged me to open it. I found Harrison, but none of his keys worked. He shrugged, suggesting an animal might be trapped inside and not to worry since it was locked. The locked door eased my nerves, but the humming persisted whenever I worked nearby. Sometimes, it felt like someone was humming directly into my ear, cold air brushing my neck. I'd spin around, finding nothing, my heart racing. The lights, once Vernon fixed them, flickered only when I was alone, plunging me into darkness for agonizing moments. I asked Harrison and Vernon if it happened to them, but they both said no. By the end of the second week, I was on edge, feeling watched wherever I went in the theater. On the final day, I painted the black box, the last room needing a fresh coat. The oppressive energy vanished, leaving an unsettling calm that worried me more than the unease. I painted carefully, covering cracks and faded walls with fresh black paint. A clang startled me. My paint can had tipped over, black paint pooling around my sneakers. The metallic scent of blood hit me, making me gag. The humming returned, louder, coming from the door marked, "My way in." It was open. My mind screamed to run, but my feet moved forward. Inside was a costume closet, the air thick with that metallic smell. I flicked on the light, revealing racks of Victorian dresses and props. The door slammed shut behind me, locking with a click. The light went out. Panicked, I fumbled for my flashlight, but a sound stopped me, a frantic flapping, like a bird trapped in a cage. The darkness dissolved into blinding light. I was on a stage, holding sheet music for Green Finch and Linnet Bird. The auditorium was nearly empty, save for one person in the front row. I just finished singing. As I left the stage, cast members glared, their whispers cutting like knives. They called me creepy, said I only got the part because of Beaumont, called me a loser. I was no longer myself. I was Birdy, alone and shunned. I crumpled on the stage, tears streaming as their words echoed. A shadow loomed, and Beaumont's voice whispered, "Shoo, it's okay, Birdy," his smile predatory. I flinched, fear choking me. The scene shifted. I sat on a window bench, sewing, a birdcage beside me. A linnet bird fluttered inside, its eyes locked on mine. I sang, my voice trembling with longing for freedom from the hate, from Beaumont, from my loneliness. The vision changed again. I was backstage, clutching the birdcage. The cast was gone. I released the bird, watching it soar. A paint can tipped over, white paint spilling around my boots. I dipped my hands in it, scrawling my way in on a door. Inside the closet, I found a box. Wrapped in silk was a razor. "If I cannot fly, let me sing," I whispered, my hands shaking. A flash pulled me back to the closet. Birds swarmed me, pecking, their talons drawing blood. On the wall, written in paint and blood, were the words, "My way out." 3 mangled bodies were embedded in the wall, Beaumont and 2 others, their eyes gouged, jaws broken, birds pecking at their remains. A girl stood before them, her blonde hair floating, her skin cracked like porcelain. Her Victorian dress was blood-stained, her throat slit vertically. "Larks never sing when captive," she whispered. This was my way out. She tore open her throat, black blood pouring as she ripped out her vocal cords, holding them like a trophy. I screamed, the door flying open behind me. Harrison and Vernon pulled me out, their faces pale. I pointed to the closet, but it was empty. No birds, no bodies, only the words, "My way out." A week later, I was unraveling. At home, I felt eyes watching me, beaks pecking my skin. I scratched until I bled, unable to leave the house. Uncle Eric and Aunt Helen locked me in my room, saying they were worried, but I felt like Birdy, trapped in a cage. A linnet bird sang outside my window, its song blending with a voice, her voice beautiful and haunting. "The window," she whispered, "your way out." I stared at the glass, the sky beckoning beyond the bars, my heart pounding as her song grew louder.